this is Baby Wolf from Lilac, and I'm about to give you a deep dive into every sound that we end up using to make Perfect Drug. Let's go. Welcome. So this is going to be more of a deep dive kind of investigation of like the original pieces that we used to write this. So we're into Perfect Drug. So immediately this starts off with this little sample. I'm going to be real. I just grabbed a cool sounding little lo-fi thing off Splice and then chopped it up a little bit. I use this plugin when I'm feeling like cheating. It's called Endless Smile, and it just has a little bit of that into it. Just little tiny things. I'm all about like, let's do lots of little sprinkles to get things going. So then it goes right into some chuggy guitars. These are definitely the demo guitars, so we didn't use any of this. So we'll skip to, so we have this 808. So what I did here, this one's a little simpler than I most normally do. So we have, so you notice there's actually two sounds happening here. There's actually a distorted pluck and an 8. So we take this 808, pretty unexciting. I use choruses on all kinds of low end. I love, particularly this is like, I think it's an emulation of like a Juno chorus. Love it. It adds a little bit of 250 hertz, which is not exactly what I need often, but it's totally worth what it is. I use this Berserk distortion a lot, especially on basses and stuff, but I run it in side mode. So it means it only distorts the sides. And if you run a mono signal this, it will do to 0 distortion. So this is a mono signal except for the chorus. So basically just what that chorus is, I'm only crunching up what that is, the stereo field created from that chorus. So most of this is passing through. It just adds a little bit of sizzle in there. Not a whole lot, it's just a little bit of spice. Really clean. Wide and sizzling. So we don't start with any real drums, just that 808's hitting. But the thing is, that's has a little too much low end in the sense that it's not going to cut through. So the way I fix that is I actually send out just the MIDI to this guy. It's like this little like plinky, it's almost inaudible. And I actually did a lot more processing on this thing than that. But together, so like without it, it's just, okay, it's fine, but you're not going to hear basically near inaudible on a phone or something like that. So notice that's pretty heavy on the right speaker, I think, too. And so what I did is I used a Carbon Electra. I like the synth. It's got cool presets, does some cool noisy stuff. Again, same thing, going into that chorus. Except I'm not using any of the stereo width in this, not at all. And I like putting a lot of modulations before distortion, because if you modulate before distortion, particularly not so much with guitar, but with synth, it creates this, I don't know, a life into it. It has a little bit of its just own movement, and it causes the distortion plugin to behave differently because you're modulating into that. So we're doing a whole lot of stuff here, and this is a common trick I do. So modulation into decapitator. Cool, crunches that boy up. SL channel strip. It's really not doing a lot. Is the waves one. It's fine. This is something I do all the time, particularly on background elements. If I want to take something and push it back and to the sides, this is a big part of like how I do synths, because like especially in rock music, everything is just right here and it's fighting for attention. I need to be able to put stuff back here so it'd actually be heard and felt, and that creates that depth. So I use RIA delay, but it's just a delay, and I have like run it pretty low. Not a whole lot of stereo fields happening here. But one's hard pan left, one is hard pan right. And one's like 67 milliseconds, one's like 42. So it's like way even faster than a slapback. And it kind of just mushes it together. And I put different filters on it, but I high pass both of them. And that just creates a little bit of stereo field and it kind of mushes the sound together, which makes it less clear, which I want. That's how you push things back. You make them a little mushy. And then I often use that little super Haas effect delays into a micro shift, which I like this thing too. Again, it just has it can get a little chorusy, which I don't love the chorusy effect, but it does push things back and pushes them out. Really, especially for elements like this, I need this to sit like in the background. This is not like you don't even notice it until I break it out. And then we go into EQ. This is just a little noisy frequency I found, got rid of it. And so So I really like this plugin too, and so I'm doing a lot of saturation with this. It's like a channel strip program. It doesn't have a whole lot of interesting things. It just has every normal effect that I want. Easy to use. Filters, both high and low, like normal sounding saturation if I want to crunch things up a little bit. The EQ is fine. It's okay. And then the compressor, it has 3 modes that can quickly. They all sound fine. Mix everything. I just really like it because of the GUI. So, good job, Waves. Yay. So, let's get down to some interesting sounds. Wherever they are. Okay, here we go. So this has a lot of reverb going on into it. But this is my favorite reverb plugin. But it's not a it's far more of an effect, because again, I'm all about how do I put things back here behind you and to the left and right behind you. And it's the Eventide black hole. I love that. I always have that on a bus. And you can send a lot to it and you don't really notice it's there. Like if I solo it, you notice it, but just like it creates almost a pad-like sound behind everything, and you can send a lot of your signal there. And I really like it. And so you'll see I have a lot of like muted effects throughout everything, just because I'm always experimenting with things. So let's break down the different sounds of this main verse lead sound. So we have, I'll even turn off the reverb. Blah, 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 blah. So the reason I'll often add little drum samples to the beginnings if I need a little bit more pluck. And I don't pitch them. The MIDI notes changing. No, this is just playing a little drum sample. And I just wanted a little bit up. I haven't pitched it up like an octave, so it's not doing a whole lot. I just want a little bit of but the main sound is this. So you can hear that percussion adds a lot to it. But this sounds like a marimba or something. So again, a lot of what I do is, a lot of people focus on synths. I focus on effects. I mostly use the synth to create a lot of motion often. But like, I'm a big viewer, a big fan of using effects and making that part of the instrument. So we ran into another decapitator. I use the decapitator a lot in this project. So notice I roll off a lot of the low end, crunch it up a little bit. It's pretty close to 90%. Again, you'll see this on a lot of this project too. I love this. This program's free. I super recommend it. Tile makes some cool stuff. But this is super free. I use this a lot of things. Just adds that. Just makes things stereo. Just spreads it out. Okay, and then here's something that I do a lot. Is I don't know if you're familiar with mid-side EQ, any of that kind of thing. I think this is a really good introduction to mid-side EQ, because we're like, what do I do? Just because I can turn down the highs or lows on the sides and mids, why would I want to do? Okay, this plugin, it's not free, but it's Waves, so they're always have a million sales. It just has like a broad 2 knobs between the center and the sides. So I can actually control like how much of that how stereo basically this thing is, which I really like. So now after that, we ran as like a pretty. So do actually a fair amount of compression with this as well. It's fine. Everybody like raves about this stuff. I don't know. It's fine. I don't find it rocks my world necessarily. I'm always basically trying. If somebody says something's cool, I'm gonna try to make it work. And everything has their own little sound, but you notice this Ria comp. I have this on everything. This is just my generic sidechain EQ for everything in case I ever need it. And then finally, run into a not really doing a whole lot, but like, so we put all that stuff together. But notice like a lot of that sound is the reverb, because and I take a kind of a different approach to reverb. A lot of people kind of it's just like this effect that you're throwing in. I put a reverb on the sending to a reverb really early, because sometimes it's just kind of an auxiliary effect to make it glue together. Reverb can be a tool or it can be part of the sound. So often like a hall reverb or reverb plate, those are meant to kind of glue things together and make them feel in the same space. This is more of a creative use. I want to create an interesting sound that feels like something. And especially that black hole from Eventide, love it. It's super good for that. Okay, so that's basically all the sounds that is happening on this intro of the verse. Vocals come right in. And I just wrote these drums using the Superior drummer, nothing crazy. Cool. All right, and then we hop over to. You'll notice these drums. Originally, I wrote them; they were a lot heavier. We trimmed things down. I had a lot of double bass going, and often I'll write before. I'm the first thing that gets written, so I write this song, Create for Nothing, and send it to the vocalist. And it's usually a little bit too much. We trim it back to make sure there's space. I try to leave them space, but sometimes it'll get a little excessive. But there's a lot of double bass in this. Okay, so I have little sounds here. Like, these are like trailer sounds. Mick Gordon, the guy who did the Doom soundtrack, I love his production style on that soundtrack, and he uses a lot of kind of trailer impacts. And so that kick, when you especially have a lot of double bass, like the kick can't hit but so hard, because if you hit, you'd have to keep this kick short. So I kind of think of having like two kicks, basically combining with those impact sounds, kind of squishing it all together. Let's see. And this is definitely not the bass we use. I like this. Actually, most of this is free. This is a free, I don't know, Fender or something plugin. It sounds really good. I like it. It does not go low enough for me. It needs to go down. We were playing drop B, I think, in this song or somewhere around there. And so I actually shift this down an octave and then do some format shifting to kind of adjust it. And I got this dark glass emulation. I actually really like it. Sounds pretty good. And then I just sidechain compress the crap out of it. Yeah, did it for a demo. I usually don't care too much. I'm just like, get in there and get out. And so here's something that on this chorus that I do a lot of. As soon as that hits, like, I love these like pads that just. I like they kind of, the notes just like flow all over each other. I use this everywhere. This is like a really like beautiful sound, because you can stick. You didn't even notice it was there, did you? Alright, now you hear it. So the way I do these sounds, again, I'm a big fan of that Eventide black hole. Let's go. But if we ditch, so I'll show you what it sounds like without the. It's still pretty wet without the Eventide. And so the way we do this, let's see. Oh, this is pretty simple actually. So I just use this Carbon Electra. These are a lot in this project. I kind of generally pick a synth and try to use it a lot in a single project, see what I can get out of it. And then I kind of like this weird shimmery, lo-fi-ish kind of like. And then I run into that same Sheps thing, and I distort it, compress it a lot. So I'm slamming into that boy, like hard, and just rolling off some low end. But like I'm hitting it really hard, because again, this is a background sound, I need this back here. And so kind of that feeling of depth is like just really crushing that sound together. And then good old Valhalla delay. Love this plugin. If I could tell you to buy one thing from this, these guys are great. The reverbs and delays are amazing, and they're like $30. $30. Sounds pretty cool, but not exactly what we want. It's too in your face. Black hole it up. Now we're cooking. Sounds great. And again, I use a lot of pitch wheel, and so like a lot of pitch wheel makes it sound like Van Halen if you're not careful. But just kind of using it like as a very manual portamento to get between several different notes. I do that a lot, and often you'll see that a lot of this is fully unquantized. This is me, baby. Because on a pad you can be a little sloppier. If I completely bomb a note or something, I might go in here and fix it. But with this stuff, I like the unquantized feel of it. I like it a little sloppy, especially because the pad has a lot of attack. You kind of need to play it before the note anyway. But like that's a huge part of what we do. What we do here at Lilac. And then on the other sound is. You still hear that chimey black hole. Love it. Everywhere. So. Okay, and so we're gonna hop in here, and what I did with this is actually I took this really weird, let me find this. This is the original sound. It's kind of like just a drony, hummy pad sound, okay? And so I take that same sound, and then I took a little snippet of the same and had that actually have it play just in the right speaker, and so this adds a little bit of a tax down. Yeah, so I took the same sound and I basically used different pieces of it in different parameters, and I layer all three of them together. So this is one, kind of quiet, low, almost plucky, super patty. So put them all together, and then I have the pannings on them all different too. So one's like a little bit to the right, one's super to the right, and one's mostly to the left. So then I create that movement, because again, I want it to be able to move on itself. Obviously, you can automate all this stuff, but if we can give that, I'm all about giving that synth the personality. Like it's already kind of doing its own thing, a little bit out of your control, just a little bit. I really love doing that with synths, because then I find that really inspirational. Because the problem with synths to me is they're so controlled; they have no opinions, and then it makes music that's predictable. Make me do something I didn't know. So I'm distorting this, rolling off some high end, not compressing it too bad, but just a little compression, because it's pretty tight sound already. And then again going into this, just and again playing with pitch. When you D2 things, they tend to mush things together. I find that because that original sample is super low. It's like a pad sound, and so I'm playing it super high, which gives it that weird kind of lo-fi sampling error, which it kind of sounds like, you know, you throw a sample in a super old Akai or whatever, it kind of messes it up. Kind of like a 16-bit, which I kind of like that weird crunch. I'm doing a little bit of distortion, but nothing super, but it sounds like a lot of distortion. And so if we break down this in a bit, so I need that pluck, because otherwise it doesn't really come through. So that's an octave up, and then this is like kind of the core sound. That's a pluck, and then so it adds like a subtle octave on top of that. And then again, that sounds okay, but when we put that Eventide back in, yes, woo, sounds lovely, lovely. Cool. All right, and second verse, I don't think it has any extra spice in it. As far as new elements, nope. This is one of my more simple projects, and so I'll use a lot of and like take a sound, reverse it, and then use that as a build up. Yeah, so that's just like a China sound. I just reversed. And back to that same on using the chorus. Nothing crazy. Okay, same chorus, and then again, I like this project because like it's a little simpler than a lot of stuff we do, and it worked. I mean, I'm all about like adding like 10 million layers to everything because that's what I like to do. But this one turned out pretty simple. You can see there's a lot of channels where I write a lot of things and then they just, they don't work. So I'm a big fan, like, write too much. Like, every story should have, like, a whole pile of stuff. And I write parts that didn't work. Like, I'm sure there's a whole section of stuff that didn't get the cut. What is this? Like, ooh, maybe, like, these are all sections of the song that no one will ever hear about us. Unless you ask, and I'll show them to you. Okay, so the next... So the first thing we do, we hit that, go back into that bridge, which I really like. We just hit go back to that. We play that same 8 away from the verse because I like using the same elements for different jobs because it glues it together. Because you've heard the sound, but you don't really notice it. It just means to needs a little impact to chill out here. This is called Stranger Things because I wonder why. This is just an arpeggiator. I downloaded this VST a really long time. I don't love it or hate it. I just have it. It was the only arpeggiator I had for a minute, so I use it a lot. Okay, let's break down this sound. And again, you know it. Hit that black hole. So it sounds okay, and then So I'm just well, we'll start with this. This is just the reasynth. This is the stock synth in Reaper. I use it almost never because it's very simple. It doesn't have any life. I just needed a little bit of high end to this. So like has a little chirpiness to it. I like. And this is straight up a sample I actually used. So what is this? Let's turn off the harp on this. Not particularly pleasant, but that's the sample I used. And then when it arpeggiates, so again, this is like some processed. And again, I used actually sampled synths a little bit more than I normally do, and then resample them and put them through more effects. But again, I kind of like I call them, I guess they're sampling errors would be the term. That happens when you take a sample and pitch it up. And I kind of like that weird sound that it makes. Especially, it can get a little crunchy if you don't process it right. But, process it right. Cool. Really super pleasant. Let's put that arpeggio back on. And I'm sure it's even worse without the black hole. Eventide, you save us every time. I mean, it's got a cool, nice little texture. It's glues together a little bit, but I'm really, that tone, I'm all about using saturation and compression to glue sounds together, especially when you do this, because they're a little bit too disparate for me. So, and then we're going into I actually really like this plugin. I don't use it often, but because I just like it has a bunch of effects on it, and I like throwing things onto that have a bunch of, like, too many things on them, and being able to dial it back. It's actually but it does that gate sound. But it's a little too staccato, so that's why that reverb kind of glues the... So basically what it is with the staccato sounds, the reverb kind of fills in the gaps, which I think draws attention to a little bit. Okay, we're back to the... So I do a lot of compression here. Like... So there's things where you don't really notice it. Like I kind of match the volumes pretty well, but I'm hitting like 15 decibels of compression here. That's a lot. And I'll often, like a thing I usually do is have this like Sheps plug on almost everything. Even if it's just like 30% saturation, just a little bit of odd harmonics in there can, like, I find if you do that on every single channel, it's kind of like, think about like a channel strip noise. It's kind of like that. It has a certain color. I will often do that. This is another thing I do a lot. And again, I like things that have just movement and life, and it's a lot. But I don't want it to be screamingly loud. And so this is just an auto pan, but it's pretty subtle. It's a 22, it's really slow. Like, if you listen for it, you can slowly hear it, but it's not profound at all. And I like layering a lot of those little effects. They give it life. And so now we're back. This is the same effect I used, or same way I used it on that 808. It's a distortion. So if I put this in, like, yeah, it sounds okay actually, but it's kind of mild, but I'm just doing it on the stereo sound, just on the sides. So you have your mid sides. This is just crunching up the sides, which has a lot of sides because they're kind of stereo samples, I think. Yeah, they're stereo samples. But when I put this auto pan, it makes it actually a lot more of a stereo sound subtly. And so the things that that Berserker distorts is different. Again, it sounds like I'm saying these crazy things like it's going to make a profound effect to the sound. I like doing a lot of little things all together. And then I've seen that beautiful low pass filter. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the Waves one knob stuff, but the one knob filter, boom, use that on a lot of things. And then I just do a little bit EQ here after the filter, just cutting some sounds, just for mixing purposes. We're back after I knocked my camera off. Ooh, let's see what the original sound was here. So this is my original guitar. We did not use... Actually, this is one of the few things I actually play guitar on the real album. There's like 3 parts. Seth's a better guitarist than me. But for all this tender, pretty stuff... So I recorded this with a Pod HT500, and so if you really want to know my secret technique to all my pretty stuff, here's the thing. So you basically play your root note. Let's say you play an A or whatever, do on the 12th fret A, and what you play is 2 octaves up. You play a third, so you play a C. And that's like, you have these, it creates this like weird mid-scoopy almost sound because you're in, they're very disparate, but you play that kind of thing where you mostly play thirds or fourths or seconds, and you kind of use your thumb to the root note like we're doing here. It's just really pretty sound if you get your delays and reverbs right. I run it through a little of the Eventide, of course, but like most of that I just recorded straight. Again, I figure a lot of these things are demos. Some, like actually one of my demo guitars actually made it into the final album just because it sounded so good. It was like, wait, well, Mike was like, yeah, I don't think we can do better than this. It's like, yes! I personally like the sound we made here a little bit better, but I don't always give my opinion. Oh, but that's really all that's happening. Like, it's beautiful. And so the reason I did this arpeggio here is because it's really important you have something just driving the music forward. I mean, obviously you typically use drums for that, but the problem is like sometimes you don't want drums going through. And so you can get away with that, like as an electronic guy, use plucky synths in place of production because the human mind doesn't care. It drives it. So this is like a really quiet, tender part, but you know that I'm playing like 16, 30-second notes playing through all this. Yeah, that was a good drive. The next part I really like. So I actually did some stuff on. So the first thing is actually that super chimey, plucky, whatever hand pick guitar. We did the same thing with the. I'm driving it really hard. Again, the sound is really compressed after the drive, so it doesn't necessarily get very much louder. Notice that the waveforms don't even necessarily change massively. That's really backup sound. Remember this chorus, Lee? This chorus? So I try to reuse synths as much as you can across different parts because it really does make a sense of glue. Otherwise, you're like, everything's completely different. You're like, whoa, what is happening? Is this a different song? You can really get away with a lot if you kind of reuse a lot of the sound. So first of all, we have. So again, we're using that pitch shift. Again, this is, you can see it's pretty sloppy, and since it's not quantized. Again, I love playing with that sound because it really gives that fluid kind of sound with pads. You can really get away with that. Obviously, generally, we're gonna want to play it mono. Like you start doing poly shifts, usually almost always sounds like garbage. But that's not the cool sound here. It's this thing. Like, what the crap is that? Okay, let's see what we have in here. Okay, so you can see I went through a lot of experiments here. We just ignore all of this. Let's see. Okay, so let's undo everything and see what's inside. Okay, I have a phaser that does absolutely nothing. You can ignore that. So the first sound is, again, I'm using this Carbon Electro. I used a lot of synths on this track. Okay, and then I run into another instance of Carbon Electra. So, see, that's not very useful. It's very noisy and like has a lot of weird, cool movement. It's got a lot of life in it, but it's got too much life. You're like, all right, that's not very useful, but you combine them together. It's just so much texture and just movement and just before even the effects. That thing is just alive. I love it. It's so pretty. And obviously, you can see how much I'm cheating using this. It's a little like that black hole really glues it all together. But we're not done. So if I just want some sounds, that's literally what this thing does. I think it's emulating a baseball's pedal, the electroharmonics, but with a lot more. And it's really just like a lot of like just like little bubble sounds. Basically, I want that stereo movement. I just want movement. That's what I always want in these big patty sounds. And then I actually do this right here a lot. I use vibratos. I really like the Melodies one. I think this plugin's free, I believe, actually. So is the classic auto filter. I like free plugins if I can. It's just it detunes at a certain rate, but I keep the depth really, really, really low. So it's the subtle pitch detuning. Because like again, when you mush with the like almost like a cassette effect. And again, how I play that, it has that very like a lot of that is performance. Yay, good job, Cam. And then no near finally. Like look, that actually changes the sound pretty profoundly. Like I said, this thing has like a 250, 300 hertz, like a pretty noticeable bump. I now find EQ wise, which is not always one of my. This is kind of a thin sound without it, so I probably would have done that EQ anyway. Okay, and then we're back to. Okay, this one's actually distorting the whole mix. So there's a nice little volume jump there, and then we're doing that same auto pan trick again, really slow. Moving all around. Okay, then we're going into, so I'm using some like heavier, notice the sound, it's pretty bright. Now it gets a lot darker. So actually I'm using pretty heavy low pass and high pass filters in this, and some distortion going in here. What I'm actually doing is mid side, so I'm actually doing the mids a little bit less and distorting the sides, because then separating those two can really create some interesting stereo field effects. They actually have different, I got really fancy here, different filters on the mid and the side. Woo! And a lot of EQ happening. And again, I'm slamming that compressor. Like, I do that a lot. I really just, especially when you're using two synths, I really like to crush it together with compression and saturation, because it kind of sounds like one sound now, as opposed to two different synths before. And then I don't actually use this at all. So now mix through. Sounds beautiful. Yeah, I really love that sound. I think it really worked out well. And as far as like things go, of what actually made it into the final song, of course, we always write a million different little things that never make it anywhere. If you want to hear a little, what was happening here? Oh, we were getting trappy at some point. I'm not going to show Oscar's ad-libs. That would be cruel. Yeah, okay, so yeah, I remember this. So this isn't in the song, obviously. This was originally the verse. So again, I'm a big fan. Like, I write a lot of these different parts and I'll see what's together, and yeah, and that's basically how all the little bits and bleeps and bloops that make up Perfect Drug by Lilac. So if you have any further questions or want to know what I do, this one was pretty straightforward. So I'm happy to do a deeper dive in any of that stuff. I'm Baby Wolf. Check us out on Instagram and all the other different places and Spotify, and thanks for watching. Later.